It's a Sunday morning, beautiful Sunday morning. It's very sunny outside. You got your family, you got your kids, your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, right? You get out of bed, you have your breakfast, things like that. And then you realize that the bed sheets on your bed, I know this might be a little bit of a personal anecdotal example, but I'm going to use it. The bed sheets on your bed are a little bit dirty. Everyone's got to change their bed sheets for one reason or another, right? And so you say, okay, I'm just going to take the first two layers of the bed sheets above the mattress, and I'm just going to put them in the laundry dryer, right? Or the washer, excuse me. And then you realize, holy crap, the very bottom sheet right on top of the mattress needs to be washed and replaced as well. So you say, screw it. Instead of taking it off all nice, it's dirty. It's got to be washed anyways, right? So you take the whole sheet and you just yank it off. And another example I would give very quickly pertaining to this is, for example, what you see in the movies or the cartoons, or in some cases in real life, when very, very talented waiters or waitresses can actually pull the tablecloth out underneath all of the plates and dishes and glasses and cups and forks and utensils in a restaurant without any of it falling off the table, that type of thing. Think of that tablecloth, or think of that sheet on the mattress, that final layer of bed sheet, as space and time. I would like to personally thank our friend Camden for giving that example, because I will not take the credit when I didn't come up with it myself. Think about the way in which time could be pulled within one of these UFO craft. However, time is being pulled to it in order for it to travel a certain distance or go back in time or go forward in time. But irrespective of everything outside of that vicinity, no one knows what the hell's going on. Time is moving in a linear fashion. With that being said, folks, today's episode is called The Jump Gate, using plasma cones to pull Bio-GRAPHENE-A.I into D.U.M.Bs. D.U.M.Bs stand for Deep Underground Military Bases, AI standing for Artificial Intelligence. Now, I would like to say very quickly, we do have a Patreon. It does help support the show. Truthfully, folks, there's a lot of stuff that I'm taking a bit of a risk speaking about publicly, which is why things that I cannot fully connect full circle in this episode, we're going to be covering in the next 24 to 48 hours on the Patreon for the members-only episodes. I really don't have much of a choice. I apologize. With that being said, I'd also like to thank Riel, Nils, Scott, Camden, everybody that's basically helped formulate and bring these connections together. Michelle, Amy, everybody, thank you so much. The member Zoom call really helped sort of bring things full circle. With that being said, let's jump into it. So let's take a look here at goldenmean.info. This is according to Dan Winters. Now, Dan Winters' work, for those that are not familiar with him, discusses the idea of remote viewing, astral projection, and harnessing the plasma cone fields of energy, which is the same shape, that sort of triangular cone shape. Again, similar to the pyramid shape. Again, the triangle, granted, but anyways, the same shape in which the propelled electromagnetic fields use in different of their propulsion systems, because there's different kinds, use to get off the ground. It's the same concept. Now, Mr. Dan Winters argues that ultimately using remote viewing and these plasma cone energies and harnessing the ether, or whatever you would like to call it, we as human beings, as an individualistic being, if you will, or soul matrix at an individual level, can do things onto planets like create hurricanes, tornadoes, you name it, that we would never think we'd be able to do, which would explain perfectly why there's so much knowledge and government suppression at a mental level. Because the physical aspect of things can be controlled, right? Now, let's take a look at this right here. The webmatrix.net. For those that are members, you'll know that I brought this up to most of you already, but this is a beautiful expose of the timeline from the 1930s with regards to extraterrestrial intervention with the human race. Arguably, we are ETs too, but again, up until now. But I want to point out this particular part of the page here. 2015. On June 15th, the British Interplanetary Society brings together top minds to explore a way on, quote, how to overthrow a Martian dictatorship, end quote. Is this the real reason for this gathering of top minds about a possible Nazi slave colony on Mars controlled by a ruthless Nazi dictator? Now, I know some of you might be saying, Dave, whoa, you're jumping into the rabbit hole a bit too quickly for me. Well, folks, let's bring it down to a much more realistic level. The former Israeli space defense minister, which, by the way, I don't even know why you would need a space defense minister if there's nothing going on in space, as they say. But anyways, he said, he's retired now. He goes, I'm highly respected. He goes, I have nothing to prove to my colleagues. I have all my awards. He said there's a war going on Mars, and humans are working with aliens and underground bases on Mars in order to deter and defeat certain factions or elements. He didn't say human or alien. He stopped there. Granted, let's take a look right here. On November 25th, 2015, Obama signs law H.R. 2262, protecting corporate crimes in space until 2022. Off-planet corporate mining operations utilizing slave labor, end quote. Now, for those that are familiar with this, I'm referring to something called the ICC, standing for the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerates. Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, All these contractors are the companies in which deploy secret space program factions to do different types of mining on different planets, whether it's Venus, Jupiter, Mars, you name it. Now, there's a lot of you that might be saying, whoa, Dave, you're going a little too far for me. Some of you might know this, but some of you might be saying you're going a bit too far. So sure, let's bring it back a little bit. Let's take a look at this right over here. This is according to Wikipedia. ALICE, Artificial Linguistic Internet Computer Entity. ALICE, also referred to AliceBot or simply Alice, is a natural language processing chatterbot, a program that engages in a conversation with a human by applying some heuristical pattern matching rules to the human's input. It was inspired by Joseph Weizenbaum's classical ELIZA program, end quote. Okay, a lot of people are scared about this, but one of the connections I want to make here, again, not good and not bad, is that it's the same composite of code that seems to be ingrained within that of Alice's, I guess you could say, structure of the way in which the apparatus operates is very similar to that of the way in which Dan Winters describes the different fractal plasma apparatuses, the different types of energy. Again, thanks Rihel so much. The different types of energy that allow for this to occur within the general vicinity of, you could say, ley lines, or even separate or away from ley lines, but not even that, folks. I want to show you this right here. Alien-UFO-sightings.com. MIT's ultra high definition 3D printer creates futuristic death masks. Now, forget the death masks part. I mean, yes, if we scroll down a bit, we'll see they look really cool and stuff like that. Notice a couple different things, okay? First off, MIT. Please keep that in mind, the university. You'll see the connection in a second. But take a look right here. And I quote, based on a previous project entitled Lazarus and formed through high-resolution volumetric material modeling and 3D printing, the series embodies vessels for inner structures. Designed to match the structures found in nature, present employs, the present is the company, the gradual development of a death mask's role as a symbolic cultural relic to a functional biological interface. It moves beyond the exterior surface and into the interior volume of the mask, employing a contemporaneous interpretation of the soul's journey, end quote. The fact that they are utilizing the same structural code, and when I say code, I don't mean just computer code. We could talk binary, we could talk frequencies, this, light codes, you name it. The fact that the same code is being encompassed here within that of the same plasma cone proposal that Mr. Dan Winters has put forward with remote viewing, not just with Mr. Dan Winters, but within that of Alice, and we're not even done yet, folks, and also within the Pegasus software, shows and tells me, at least based on the research and the data points of consistency and evidence, that there is an attempt to cover up the graphene AI. There's a difference between graphene oxide, graphene AI, which we could argue is a branch, a substrate, if you will, a very advanced holographic substrate of black goo made on a human level, made to look like they're nano robots when they really are not. Now, why is that so significant? Let's take a look at this right here. I'd like to thank a very good friend of the show, Nick. Brother, thank you for bringing this story up. Now, granted, I do know this is not the story he was talking about, but it's the closest I could get. How do we know this? Very good friend of the show, works at Amazon. And he said for 10 to 12 hours, there was a massive hack and it was not reported whatsoever. Similar to what happened to me a few months ago. Members will know when half of Canada's cell towers went down. Never went reported. Now, take a look. MiddleEastEye.net, Pegasus. Amazon shuts down cloud infrastructure linked to Israeli's NSO group. Okay, now again, this has to do with Pegasus and, relative to the Promise software and all that with Robert Maxwell and Epstein and you name it. But the point here is this, to show that this same type of apparatus within Pegasus is relative to the same code and composition that is being implied not only by Alice, not only by MIT's design of these face masks, but also, again, by Dan Winters, in addition to the seemingly interesting timing of Greta Thunberg and Hillary Clinton, seen on the streets. And Greta Thunberg, she's got this black goo all over her, right? And she's got it in the magazine appearance and all that. Now, the next thing I want to take a look at here is this right here. This is a PDF. For those interested, please feel free to email me if you want to know. Strain modulated super lattices in graphene. Department of Physics, the Pennsylvania State University, University Park. Now, this was conducted in Pennsylvania State University, but it was later then sent to MIT to confirm. Keep the University of MIT in mind, folks. We're going to bring this full circle, I promise. Take a look at this. And I quote, due to its high electronic mobility, optical transparency, mechanical strength, and flexibility, graphene is attractive for electronic applications. Okay, before I go on, isn't that what they just did right there? What we just talked about, that mask that you could see through, and it's representative of nature. Again, harnessing the similarities between what physicists are finding when they study, and quantum physicists are finding when they study they're trying to figure out what makes up the composition of this universe in this dimension. They then look at the internet and they see the same type of structure emitting. And then you look at the Mexican pyramids from an eagle's eye view, whether it was using piezoelectricity or not. The Mexican pyramids from above, the Mayan pyramids, it looks like a modern day CPU. And it explains, I mean, it's consistent with Colonel Philip Corso saying we got the design and that whole apparatus electronically of the integrated circuit from reverse engineering material at the Roswell crash. Now, granted, Roswell was not the first alien human crash or intervention, but do you see the consistency relative to the last 80 years in which is lining up here? But let's carry on. Let's take a look. However, several factors prevent the realization of common electronic applications. Bullshit, that part. No way. For example, the lack of a band gap prevents an effective off state in graphene transistors. Further, Klein tunneling, in which electrons pass through an electrostatic barrier with perfect transmission, prevents electron confinement by traditional gating methods. End quote. You see that right there, folks? They have that figured out. But on a public level, they can never admit it. And even the people studying this and making this report and this proposal may not know themselves. This goes back to my distributive idea suppression complex. Disk theory, not mine, excuse me, Mr. Eric Weinstein's. This goes back to, my advocacy and support for Mr. Weinstein's proposal. I would dare to argue they have this. They have the answer to that. Again, leaving out of certain equations reminiscent and relative to that of Harvard, Oxford, Yale, and Stanford, specifically those universities, because alleged certain Majestic 12 members oversee all of that. Now, let's carry on. It gets even better than this, folks. Take a look at this right here. LiveScience.com, 3 days ago, astronomers discover enormous cavity in the Milky Way being masked by a cosmic illusion. Oh, how convenient. Interesting. The bubble-shaped void is likely the result of an ancient supernova shockwave. End quote. I want to make something very clear here. You notice how they used to say before, oh, we can't see into the past and things like that. And all of a sudden, we have the tech to do it. If you look far enough, you can. And yes, that's common physics. We know this, right? With that being said, notice how they're using physics that we would have thought 30, 40 years ago it would be a joke. They're using those physics to explain away what could really be happening. So do you see the layers of the onion are being peeled away? Sort of like those Claritin Clear ad commercials when they peel away the layers. That's what I would dare to say Project Bluebeam is relative to all of this disclosure in general. With that being said, let's take a look at this right over here. Take a look. ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. Heterochronic parabiosis for the study of the effects of aging on stem cells and their niches. Okay, end quote. You see what this is right here? This very fancy way of saying it's possible baby blood and the plasma from baby blood, which we'll cover in the Patreon because I can't, YouTube will ban me for talking more about this, but it's right. This is the article. This is the report, folks. It's hidden in plain sight in 2012, June 15th of 2012. If you read into it, you're going to see, oh my God, it surpasses that of stem cell aging. They hide within the paragraphs of this report or this study or proposal, whatever, this paper. It's right there. It's biochemical changes in the niches of tissue stem cells inhibit performance of this regenerative pool. If true, slowing down stem cell and niche aging, thereby promoting tissue regeneration, could slow down the process of tissue and organismal aging. End quote. What do you need to reverse that? The blood and skin of the youth, the DNA of the youth. How else are you going to get it? Again, our best tricks come from nature. Interesting, isn't it, right? Nature has a funny way of showing itself in general. Now, the next thing I want to take a look at is this right over here. fpds.gov. You type in Lockheed Intelligence, those two keywords. Look at this right here, folks. Look at this. Lockheed Martin winning these no-bid contracts or open bid contracts. Why do I say keep MIT in mind? Look at some of the way in which these contracts are awarded. They're sent between New York and Boston. The city of New York and Boston. The transferring stays within MIT and stays within New York. Members will know Bill de Blasio. Remember that? Wilhelm. His real last name is Wilhelm. You see that? Lockheed Martin, how they're doing all this. Now, there's a couple locations you'll find. You'll see Virginia. CIA. Makes perfect sense. Langley, Virginia, right? Now, speaking of CIA, take a look at this. Skyfort.org, okay? We are Skyfort, a strategic think tank and incubator working on the UAP subject. Lou Elizondo is apparently a part of this. Now, with that being said, I want to make something very clear. I'm not trying to say that Lou Elizondo is telling the truth or he is a psyop. That is not for me to say. Could be a little bit of both. With that being said, Skyfort, he claimed, is being suppressed and censored. He could be telling the truth. He could be lying. Why do I bring Skyfort up so significantly? Because if we take a look at this right here, GrapheneOS.org. GrapheneOS is a privacy and security focused mobile software with Android app compatibility developed as a non-profit open source project. It's focused on the research and development of privacy and security, end quote. It's called GrapheneOS. I would dare to argue very strongly because members will know as well, more specifically, we talk about this on Zoom calls a lot. When you give energy, When you give, energy and focus towards a particular word, symbol, object, you name it, that focus more and more begins to be directed within the 0-point field that interfaces with consciousness and thought to make people think, oh, graphene OS, graphene good, graphene safe. I'm not saying it's bad, but the way it's being used right now and disseminated into the public through predictive programming, my God, it's a perfect example of the old version of Operation Mockingbird. Now, equally as interesting, NewYorkTimes.com. European Union seeks, my free articles are up for the month, but anyways, you'll see it on your screen. Basically, the headline talks about how the European Union is looking to make one unified, universal charger for all cell phones across Europe. Okay, which means they'd also have to replace the Apple charger. Interestingly enough, some of the same people involved with Graphene OS are allegedly involved, okay, within this advocacy within the European Union. Interesting, isn't it? Interesting how those connections are being made there. Now, take a look at this right here. TheGuardian.com. The smart toilet era is here. Are you ready to share your anal print with big tech? It's not a joke. Take a look at this. Will people trade their privacy for the chance to find out exactly what is in their waste? Honestly, folks, my opinion, pardon my English, no freaking chance in hell. No chance in hell. Why? If I trusted big tech, that's different. Until you guys give us and release the cure for cancer, I don't care. Because you can solve the problem, and now you're just disseminating it to make more money. Screw off, So anyways, take a look at this. Space Force.military. Army Navy SATCOM mission areas shifting to U.S. Space Force. Again, look at this. October 1st, 2021, within the last 3 weeks. Space Force General John W.J. Raymond made the announcement at the Air Force Association meeting in Washington yesterday. The transfers are scheduled to be effective October 1st, 2021 if the DoD budget is passed and of course it's going to get passed and signed. Come on. We're one team with our sister services, and over the last year and a half, we have worked with the Army and the Navy and the Air Force to determine which capabilities come over to the Space Force. The intent was to consolidate and increase our operational capability, increase our readiness, and do so in a more efficient manner. End quote. What they don't tell you is that Alice, the component of Alice, is directly involved in this, the artificial intelligence Alice, which is similar to the secret DARPA AI that oversees the skies relative to the NORAD project, which is timely and coincidental with Elon Musk's release of Skynet. Okay, folks, I know this is a lot to take in, but take a look at this, the debrief.org. The experience, the cultural rise of alien abductions and those who encounter them. Former New York Times reporter Ralph Blumenthal explores the rise of the alien abduction phenomenon and the people who experience it. Okay, now take a look at this right over here. If we see here, the long-awaited June 25th, blah, 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 assessment to Congress, yada, yada. Although it acknowledged they probably do represent physical objects and clearly pose a safety of flight issue. But the report pointedly avoided the question of whether they might be off-Earth vehicles. Now, end quote, before I go on, there was the same Mr. Blumenthal commented on this article on Twitter, saying that he was told while he was at the New York Times, loads and loads of celebrities and many people coming to him about UFO sightings, but he couldn't report it. No one would believe him. And all of a sudden now they are. This just goes to show you we as the people, unfortunately, have become Operation Mockingbird. And for those who don't know what it is, just give it a simple Google. And it's pretty simple. It's not even a conspiracy at this point. So now the final thing, NewYorkPost.com. Secret office mansion owned by Larry Page burns down. Now, depending where you get this article from, you'll also notice that Epstein had a very vying interest into this office. Why? He was involved in data mining, allegedly, with Larry Page. And he used to make the phone calls from his private cell tower on his private island. We'll get more into that a little in the members' episodes. The data mining was harnessing some of the code from the Graphene OS software. You see what I'm saying here, folks? So what's happening is that this AI and Graphene-A.I is being used to disseminate into the public with the members will know the Lil Nas X blood on the shoes, the Tony Hawk blood on the skateboard. It's hard for me to even talk about that more publicly. I'm taking a risk, but screw it. Anyways, they're pulling that into the deep underground military bases so the control stays underground, all right, with regards to the dissemination of the ICC, interplanetary corporate conglomerate power structure control, because things are a mess on the surface and they know it. Mass consciousness is waking up. That's the same bedsheet example. With that being said, let me know what you think, folks, and we'll catch all of you very soon. Cheers.